Alrighty, so for the first question, how many available computers do you believe are on campus and are readily available to the student body?
So unfortunately, I'm not necessarily the one that manages the computer, so I don't have an exact number for you. But in terms of that are available in the student body, I know that I think pretty much for the most part, every academic building should have some form of a computer lab that typically is going to be available to students. Um, and sometimes that'll vary. So like some buildings that may have specific computer labs. So for example, computer science building as an example has computer labs, and some of those may be primarily kind of reserved for computer science majors, things like that. Um, but we do also have a lab computer in Collier Library as well that's available to students, and the benefit of that lab is that it is open, has later hours in comparison to most of the academic buildings on campus. Um, One other route of computers in terms of being available for students is that Collier Library does also have laptops that can be checked out, so they can be used within Collier Library. So where if like a student didn't have a computer or had a computer that was having some trouble, they could check out a computer from Collier as well that would include pretty much most software students would need. So things like Respondus Lockdown Browser and some of the other proctored software that's kind of used for online classes on campus as well.
Okay. Um, okay, so the next question is, what's your personal opinion on the technology provided here to students on campus? Do you think that it's compatible and up to date with current standards to accommodate students when they need to work on assignments and projects?
I would say for the most part it is. So we do also one thing that we have is we have a virtual environment. I think VMware is what's used to where if there's some software where there's licensing restrictions to where it's not something that's readily available to just all students to have on their personal computers. But the virtual environment does allow students to access software that they wouldn't have access to otherwise. So basically just the virtual environment kind of appears like it would be a computer, like in a lab computer on campus, as an example. I think the one limitation, obviously, I think budgeting sometimes kind of plays into effect with that because obviously the funding is kind of what supports all of those computer needs, and I think we do a fairly good job for the most part of trying to keep the computers up to date, but sometimes the budget aspects or restraints can kind of sometimes affect that to an extent.
Gotcha. Do you have any specific examples for how the budget has affected the overall quality of technology that's provided?
Well, it's just really just trying to keep on a recycle, so just on a steady recycle period. I think we try to replace computers every 5 years. I think it's every seven for Mac computers. So I think that's really where the budget can kind of come into play, is just trying to keep consistent with that replay cycle that we've kind of established. And so that's kind of where budget could affect things. Is that obviously budget will dictate how many computers you could replace in an academic year, kind of thing.
Okay. Do you believe that the library gets a higher budget for that sort of thing than other departments do? Because in the communications department, there's some computer labs there, and from my experience, I've seen quite a few students having some trouble with the computers over there, oftentimes not quite working as they would want them to. Do you believe that the library is more effective in that regard?
Um, I'm not really sure since I don't know like what software specifically because I'm not as familiar with what software is over at the communications building. So I mean that could affect some things as well. I mean I don't. I know at one point in time, say for example, there used to be like a lab at communications building that was like a video editing lab as an example, um, where those kind of computers are going to require they're going to be a more costly machine to replace in comparison to just a standard lab computer where you're mostly just doing like Canvas access, like basic Canvas access or accessing email, things like that, to where those type of machines are not going to be as robust or not cost as much to be able to replace those. So I guess it really just depends on what level of machine that's over in the communications building, which I can't really speak to that just because that's not something that I directly support on my end as part of my position. Um,
Gotcha.
but that potentially could kind of play into things to where if you have some computers that have more robust software requirements, obviously then the computer to kind of support that software is going to be a little bit more expensive to kind of be able to keep up with the software that's needing to support.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay then. So overall, you would say that at least in terms of the library, you said that you believe it's at a standard to which most students would find useful to carry out what they need to do.
I think so, with the caveat I would say that it just really depends on what the software needs are of the student. So if a student's
Gotcha.
needing like a really robust computer to do high-end 4K video editing, then I don't necessarily know that the computer labs there would be, some of the computers would necessarily be up to par for something like that.
Gotcha. So
But for just,
something more like just for exam taking or like
right,
standard written assignments. You think that's more what they're built for.
right, right. So more day to day, I would say more day to day, just everyday computing. So whether it be checking email, completing like submitting assignments in Canvas or accessing Canvas, things like that.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay then. Last question that I have: do you believe that at least in some departments, do you believe that there should be computers that should be able to handle more high-end work, such as video editing for classes that require that?
I don't really know that I could speak to that because that's just not. I don't have enough information in terms of I'm not the one that would directly determine what would or
Hmm.
would not get purchased, so I can't really speak to that.
Okay, that's understandable. Um, well, I thank you very much for your time. This has
Yeah.
been very helpful. I hope you have a good the rest of your day. If you have any questions for me, I can
Um.
answer as
Yeah.
needed.
So for the class, what column class? So what's the topic or focus of the class you guys are in for Dr. Knox?
So it's a class that's about broadcast news writing. So
Okay.
throughout the course, we've been writing various different articles, kind of mock-ups. So there's
Gotcha.
been opinion pieces, there's been sports pieces, and for this assignment in particular, we're doing an investigative piece, which is basically just us looking into something that we think people might have interest in. It's not an
Okay.
investigative piece as in like it's something we're trying to uncover some kind of mystery or something. It's more so investigative in that it's something we need to go out and get interviews and talk to people about to learn more on, talking to
Gotcha.
experts on the subject. So that's why I reached out to you as an IT worker for the
Right.
subject of computers and the technology around school.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I guess with my position, it's more not necessarily as much on the back end, so I can't really answer a whole lot about financial questions or decisions because it's not really something that I have any input on my end. So
Okay. Well, in any case, I appreciate your time.
yeah, no problem.
Alrighty, thank you so much. Have yourself a
All
good
right.
day.
Yep. All right. You